So get this, guys. I'm here with literally the vice president of the largest independently owned real estate company on the planet, eXp Realty, and that is Russ Laggan. And let me tell you something here, man. I've known Russ for many, many years, and we're going to cover the gamut on some topics here today. There's a lot to be covered. And very first and foremost, what I want to do, Russ, could you explain to everybody what exactly do you do? What's your role at eXp? Why should you, obviously you're like one of the top dogs at eXp, but I want to know like what exactly is your role?
Yeah, it's stuff. We do stuff, right? It's funny because I've said for a long time I'm a GSD guy, get stuff done guy. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna have T-shirts made. And then I met Joshua Smith. Have you met Joshua Smith?
Yeah, I know Josh.
Man, that dude stole my stuff.
I know, right?
Yeah. So EXP. I mean, funny enough, I think what I see my role as is not what my role actually is, but what I see my role as is helping build a culture of making sure people feel loved and appreciated, seen, heard, felt, right? And a lot of that is wrapped around growth. So my title technically is Vice President Growth US West, which pretty much is almost everything Ohio West. So it's kind of a funny way of describing West. But when you look at the way that works, I've, that chunk of the country, and my goal is to help grow that. So we support a lot of the influencers that are in the company in their efforts doing growth. And now we actually have a team that is proactively going out into the markets and doing some of the growth. eXp as a leadership group and as a company, corporate, has never done growth. Mm-hmm. They've had a couple of growth people supporting all the people doing growth, but they grew from influencers, which, by the way, was a stroke of genius. That was the brilliance of it. It was kind of like a 2.0 version of what KW did. KW offered profit share, and their people went out and they're like, I'll go get some agents. And it took a lot of the pressure off of the people leading the offices and running the offices so that the agents would bring people to them. And eXp just 2.0 that thing. And that really is that shift. So a huge part of eXp was built through the influencers. And well, some of them, we call them the OGs now, which is kind of funny because some of them aren't old, but they're the ones that help build the thing. They're like the foundational builder people. So,
I love that you're calling them old. They're like my age and younger. I'm like, what do you mean old, man?
Mike, when was the last time you're in a room and you're sitting there and be like, let's ask the old guy, and they're looking at me?
I know, right? That's exactly the concern. Okay, so check this out. So your job consists not only of just focusing on growth, but you're kind of a fixer for eXp in a lot of ways, aren't you? I mean, you kind of go around, you figure out, hey, where can I grease the wheels on this thing? Where can I help things, work a little bit easier for everybody? I mean, tell us how that works.
Yeah, it's funny because when you look at how the real estate business is done, for every company, there's a different way of doing it. Mm-hmm. We see some similarities, but man, like every single time we get into it, like this morning, my first thing this morning, I'm on the company. They've got 100 agents and they're saying yes to the dress. They're like, we're coming. I'm like, we should have talked about that a week ago. So it's that planning and moving the people and then just figuring out like what makes sense because people have all these different scenarios. So some of the people come to us, Mike, we've got 3 reasons a brokerage or a big team person wants to come to us. Okay. 3 reasons. Okay. 1, They want out. Like, I'm done. If I could drive it into a brick wall, light it on fire, walk away and be unscathed, I'm done. Like, I want to go sit on a beach and sip on Mai Tais, right? That's one. It's like, I'm done with this. Okay. Second one is the one I love. They're like, I don't want to do it like this anymore. Because the way I'm doing it right now doesn't really work that well for me. And a couple reasons for that. You'll see brokers or teams, they get their team being built and they're getting their brokerage being built and they realize they start to do this because they want freedom, Mike. They're like, I want to have my own thing. I want to write my own check. I want to be in charge of my own destiny. And they're like, I want to have freedom, right? And what happens is they set themselves in this position for freedom and they build the team or they build the brokerage. And the more people they add to the team, the more bars they add to the cage. Mm-hmm. It's their own cage they're building around themselves. And they get to the point where they can't see anything through the bars they've built on it. The bigger they get, the less freedom they have. And then at some point they start realizing, and this is industry wide, the agents have been pushing harder for more commissions and more commissions and more commissions and more commissions. Do you remember back in the good old days? Like, I know you weren't in business and I wasn't at the time, but in the 70s, 80s, 90s, going into 70s, 80s, 90s, everybody's on a 50-50 split.
Dude,
right?
I started in 1991. So yeah, I've
Okay.
been around since then.
Okay, so you get a little bit of upward pressure into the 90s, and then
Yeah.
2000s it's going like it's 60-40s, and then of course KW comes in, now it's 70-30s, and then you got Remax comes in, it's 95-5 with a monthly
Mhm.
fee. And you've
Yep.
got all this upward pressure, and they're like, well, I could just go over to Remax and get 95. So the
Yep.
agent's pushing harder and harder and harder to keep more dollars, which understood, right? So you've got a scenario now where they get into business and they set their stuff up, and the agents just nibble at them as death by a thousand cuts. At some point, you're just like, I'm just tired of fighting the system I built. So they're looking like, I don't want to do it like this anymore. I want to get back to doing the stuff I love. See, Mike, when you're under your own umbrella, and you can just check me up if I'm going down a rabbit hole you don't want to go down, just pump the brakes.
No, this is good. Here's the thing. I think this is good information because, again, we're going to come back to, we're going to circle back to, what is 2025 going to look like?
Yeah.
Are we in a stall? How do we get sellers off the dime? How do we get them to move? And how do we deal with all this upset in the decision? But I think that this context of, where are we at from a brokerage standpoint? I think that's really important because, to your point, there was this time period where, you started seeing these new models coming in back, in we'll call it the late 80s, early 90s, you start getting Remax coming in, and all of a sudden, agents are pushing for, I want to get more commission. I want to get more commission. The problem is, you got the top producers, the ones that are really doing a lot of business. And what they really want is, hey, look, man, I just want to keep as much of my commission as I can. And I want to be left alone to do my thing. The problem, though, is that you've got a lot of middle to low producers that expect the same thing, and they need a lot more support.
Yes.
And so I think that's a major component. And the problem is that the industry hasn't been, for those models, we'll take Remax as an example. Traditionally those models have not been equipped to handle that, to be able to both handle the really experienced and really, high producing real estate agents, and at the same time be able to provide the training support and systems needed to help those lower producers.
Right. So the issue is that we've got people that are wanting Nordstrom service and paying Walmart prices.
Absolutely. That's right.
And it's never gonna win, right? So what ends up happening in this brokerage scenario and the team scenario, it's like, let's just say this is a team or a brokerage, either one, right? You've got a list of things you like to do. So Mike, first thing I do when I'm talking to people is like, well, what do you love to do? A team lead, like, what do you love to do? Or broker, what do you love to do? Actually, agent, what do you love to do? And they're like, I like working with clients. I like teaching and training, coaching. I like the mentoring. I want to grow stuff and support people and love people to success. That's their list, right? And I was like, all right, so what you didn't list is all the things that you don't love to do, okay? And very, very seldom will anybody mention anything on this list over here that don't like, which is dealing with compliance, dealing with bookkeeping, dealing with accounting, dealing with paperwork, dealing with the cities and the states and the local brokerages and the MLSs and the boards and the complaints and the ethics and the training and the MLS issues, and then the documentation issues and complaints from buyers and complaints from sellers and complaints from agents and complaints from tenants, dealing with toilet paper. By the way, when you've got 28 offices under you with 1,400 agents, toilet paper becomes a real line item. Like nobody's like, I want to deal with toilet paper issues. Okay. So you get this list of stuff that you don't like to do. And the team leads do this too. They get more people, and the more people they get, the more time they're just working on the stuff that's the non-money making activities, and the back end money making, the back end activities get things done. They're like, well, it's got to get done. Yeah, but you're not doing what you love anymore. So what happens in a lot of brokerages and a lot of teams is they get to that 8, 9, 10 range, and they find that like once you get north of 5 or 6, they're spending 50 and 60% of the time working on their teammates instead of doing sales. So what happens is a lot of these people, they get to 5, 6, 7 agents or 10 agents on their team, and they're actually making less dollars and working more hours than they were as a solo agent. Yeah. So this is where we get the people who are like, I want to shift. Like I don't want to do it like this anymore. So let's get you back to doing what you love, right? And then a third option is the one that I really love too. And it usually goes in conjunction with number 2. And the third option is they want to level up. They're like, I'm here, I'm doing okay, but man, I'm seeing these other people that are doing like way more top shelf. Like I'm watching people doing a lot better job or it looks like they're having a lot more fun, because there's misconception out there. We make it look like we're having a great time even when we're not. So they're like, I want to be more like Mike. He looks like he's having a great time doing this. And I'm like, I know Mike, he's not having a great time doing this, but it looks like he is. So let's get you to level up this game. So like you're stuck at 100 million. It seems like, dude, and we see this with brokerages all the time. They get to like 25 or 30, and then they get stalled out. And the reason they get stalled out is because the amount of time, energy, and effort they're spending on the back end means they can't spend time on the front end. So they can't get people because they're too busy working on the people they've already got. And you got to keep the people you already got. So then the brilliant ones are like, I'm going to hire somebody. And then they hire somebody to work on the back end stuff to get them back on the front end stuff. But now they need another 30 people to afford to pay for the person working on the back end. So you got 30 more people and you're still at zero. At what point do you stop the madness? You feel like you're on a merry-go-round. You're like, you're really flying. You're moving, but you're going around in a circle, right? The only thing more fun than running fast, Mike, is running fast in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So we see people are like, I'm running. Like, yeah, it's great, but you're running in a circle, right? It's like, how many holes did you dig today? 50. But they take the dirt out of the next hole and they fill the hole in they just dug. At the end of the day, they got one hole. But they worked their butt off all day. They dug 50 holes, net one at the end of the day. So we start getting to this scenario where we've got to start looking at this hamster wheel and say, how do we get people off this hamster wheel? So, and then there's a lot of agents that are on that same thing, right? The bigger they get, the less they're doing the things that they love. So there's a bunch of this stuff. It starts as in a micro with an agent, and it goes into the macro with the brokerages, and then you get brokerages the size of us. We've got 88,000 plus or minus people, and you sit back and be like, that. A lot of people say, well, that's 88,000 problems I don't want. It comes down to systems, baby. It comes down to systems, right? And it's getting the right people in the right seats and the right bus. Like, man, I don't like doing compliance. Good news is we got compliance people, and there's some people that love that. So
yeah, there's certain problems that only scale can solve. Yeah. Yes. And, you talk about, I'm digging one hole and putting the dirt back in the other one, or I'm going this merry-go-round, just going around and around. The reality is, we find that, teams that grow to, let's call it 25 to 50 agents tend to be very successful, tend to be very profitable. That's a 7-figure team, net income to the team leader. And they tend to have pretty good stability, right?
Well, hang on a second. That's when they are taught, trained, coached, and guided to that by someone like what you guys do. Right. I mean, it's one of the things I love about what you guys do with Club Wealth is you're going to not just have somebody like, dude, we built all these big teams. I'm like, you built a bunch of teams that are losing their ass. That makes no sense. Like every day they're dragging their donkey because they feel like this is no fun. Right. So building a profitable team, there's a difference between building a team and building a profitable team. So a lot of what I get is people that are in these positions like, I don't want to do this like this. So it's like, if we can get you. So let's do this. We're going to put you on our platform and get you over here. We handle the 90% of that back end. This pile goes here. This pile goes here. Now you are back doing what you love. Right. So if we,
it's interesting you say that. We find that a lot. When you look at the difference between tier 1 and tier 2, tier 1 is 0 to 25 transactions a year. Yeah. Tier 2 is 25 to 75. Tier 1, you're generally talking solo agent doing their thing. They're keeping it all. And so it's a grind. Don't get me wrong. It's a daily grind and it sucks, but at least they know, hey, I'm making money, right? All right, then you get into tier 2. Tier 2 is a whole different ballgame. Tier 2, by the time I get into there, I'm not only doing all of that stuff for me, but now I've got to go out, find, recruit, hire, train other agents. And as I find, recruit, hire, and train these other agents, I've got to support them with systems, tools, technology, staff, everything. I got to have all this stuff to support them. All of that costs money, time, effort, and energy, which is taking me away from doing the things that really make me money, like, making my calls, right? Lead generation, lead follow-up, lead conversion.
Yes.
And so tier 2, what we tell people is, tier 1 sucks, but tier 2, the only thing that sucks worse than tier 1 is tier 2. And that's because you're actually making less usually in tier 2 than you made in tier 1. Then you start getting into tier 3, right? Tier 3, all of a sudden I'm doing 75 to 150 transactions a year. My team's starting to grow. I'm starting to kind of get back in the groove. My team's starting to make more money for me than I'm making for the team, right? That's important. And then by the time I get into tier 4, the big challenge we see in tier 4 is 150 to 250 transactions a year, is that a lot of times agents want to get out of production by the time they get in tier 4.
Yeah.
Reality is it's too early. They're not ready to get out of production yet. They shouldn't even consider it until they get into about tier 5. I'd say even mid tier 5, which is 250 to 500 transactions a year. Now, that being said, what you're talking about is how do we get a lot of this stuff off that agent's plate so they can focus on only the things they want? And I'll tell you, the first thing that you got to do as a team leader, what people have to do is they have to stop thinking they're the only ones that can do stuff, or that, they're the ones that can do it the best.
Nobody's going to be the ones to do it. Nobody's going to do it as good as me. You're right.
Exactly. Dude, it's all the time. It's constant. I mean, think about the dentist, right? Last time you went to the dentist, Did the dentist clean your teeth?
Nope.
No, man, his freaking hygienist did it, right? In fact, how much time did you spend talking to the dentist when you were there last time?
Good news is I was there last week and he was looking at me like we talked about his car.
Right? That's exactly my point. Yeah.
I've got great
So
teeth. So
you spent 90% of the time with the hygienist and you spent maybe 2 to 5 minutes with the dentist. He's like, yep, looks good. He'll look in your mouth a little mirror. Oh, I got an MU on the 24 bicuspid, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Okay, looks good. Don't forget to brush and floss those back teeth. All right, we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Tell the missus I said hello, right? Like it's literally like that. It's stupid. And I say it's stupid. It's great for him, right? That's how you run an actual business. And the dental industry has figured that out. Real estate is still trying to figure this out. It cracks me up.
yeah, it's one of the things that I pushed a bunch in teaching, training, coaching, and growing people is you got to figure out that on and in the business stuff, right? So you know this, right? It's like if you're working in your business is declining. So this is the wheel, right? You're working in the business, your business is declining. When you're working on your business is going up. So what happens is you get stuck in this. This is the $0 to $50 an hour stuff, right? This is the $300 to $500 an hour stuff. So if you chalk your whole day, let's just say I'm only going to work 40 hours a week. I know you wake up 5 a.m. You're like early bird gets the worm. I wake up at 9. Like there's worms that wake up late. I get them. Right. There's a whole bunch of worms that are lazy. By the way, the lazy worms that wake up later are easier to catch because they're sluggish.
Oh
right?
my gosh. Dude, that's the worst analogy I've ever heard in my life. Oh my gosh. I feel like that scene from Happy Gilmore where he's like, you're the answer to the question, or maybe it was Billy Madison. He's like, your answers to the question were completely incoherent. May God have mercy on your soul for making us all dumber for listening to it. Like, oh my gosh. I love it. Russ Laggan's reasoning for being the lazy bird.
Dude, there's people dropping bombs. I'm dropping worms over here. So,
oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
You gotta have some fun with it. So, like, I work a lot of West Coast stuff anyway. So for me, like, my day really starts winding up at like 10, 11, 12. Like 5, 6, 7, 8 is when I got a lot of stuff flying. So I'm not going to start at 5 and work 8. That's crazy. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. So you just adjust your time and find a way to make yourself happy. Working 100 hours a week, I don't know anybody who really loves that. So when you're looking at this stuff, let's just say I'm round down to 40 hours. If you're going to do 40 hours a week and you spend half of that on $50 an hour or less activities, you just hammered yourself, right? So it's a matter of like figuring out what you're working on and when you're working on it. And this is where the real estate agents are like, but Russ, this has got to get done. I'm like, yes, it's got to get done, but not by you. This is where getting a good transaction coordinator, like that's a perfect first step because it frees you up a ton of time to do this stuff. Now, if you pay that person and you don't do more of this, you go broke. But if you pay that person, frees you up some time, and you do more of the $300 to $500 an hour activities, that's how you make real progress. And we find this with team leads, and we get these team leads, and Michael, we got these people that are spending all this time on this, and I'm like, you got to let that stuff go. You got to get this stuff assigned to somebody that loves to do that stuff. Got to get you in your sweet spot. Here's the challenge we have when people get into that bigger numbers, that 4 and 5 and 600 transactions. They want to get out of production, but they're not great operations people either. That's not right. What they love. They want to get out of production and just do more of the stuff they love, which is teaching, training, coaching, loving people. But that doesn't mean they can stop. They still got to run the business. So if you get out of the production part to the running the business part and you don't like that, then your life still sucks. Like nobody wants to build a business that sucks. But we see it all the time. And you're like, if you could describe this, what would you describe it as? This sucks, right? You're not loving life. So like, how do we make it suck less? That's what we're going for, is finding you get you back in your sweet spot. And everybody's got to go through this exercise. Michael, you've got stuff in your business that you don't love.
I think we all do. But here's the thing too, keep this in mind, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, there are things about working in the business that do make sense for producers, right? For top team leaders, right? For example, going on listing appointments, right?
Yes.
When I was at my peak, I was working 12 days a month, and predominantly what I spent most of my time doing was going on listing appointments. I actually spent very little time running my team. Yes. I had administrative team members that were better at that than I was. The key was having systems that made it possible for me to not have to spend a ton of time running my team and still have people be able to be productive. And then I was able to lead by example by getting out there and getting those transactions, those listings.
See, I think this is a redefining, because like you're saying, doing listing appointments is in the business, and I would say no, that's actually on the business, because that's the thing that's going to lead you to the thing that gets you at somebody say yes, I want to do this, and that's a dollar move, making a dollar move, right? By doing that, can somebody say yes to something that makes you more of these dollar things? Yes. Now, the preparing the CMA and preparing the documents and preparing all the paperwork, that's an in the business for sure,
That's right.
Can you pay somebody else to do that, so I could show up with a package ready to rock and roll, and I can spend 10 minutes breezing through this, make sure I understand where we're looking at, make sure we got the right side of the street. Because there are times, like when I did a bunch of business in Tampa, you go on the other side of that road, it's a completely different planet, because now you're in Palma Cia, right? So I need to make sure that my person that did that knows, by the way, only stuff east of the street, right? So that prep work and that paperwork and all that stuff that's getting you to that point, definitely in the business stuff. But doing the listing appointment itself is on the business stuff.
So if we're talking about, let's say we're talking about a team leader, and then we're going to get back to, I really want to come back to kind of state of the market, what's going on here in 2025, but this is a good conversation. I want to understand, what are your thoughts? I've got some I tend to be fairly opinionated. I know that will come as a surprise to you, but I have some thoughts on this, but I'm curious, what are your thoughts? If I'm a team leader today and I want to make $1 million a year net income.
Yep.
What are the three most important activities in my business? What are the three things that I need to do in my business?
First thing first is you got to get the right people, because you're not going to do it yourself. Mm-hmm. So getting the right people. So having that person that can work that back end of the business, so you're freed up to do the things that you need to do, is super, super important. From my perspective, I would get to perfection, as perfect as you can get at doing listing appointments, because that's going to be your highest and best use of your time, energy, and effort. I can roll 50 listing appointments in a month. I can't roll 50 buyers in a month by myself. Okay. Even with support staff, 50 buyers a month is going to be a dogfight. Okay. But 50 listings in a month, very doable with the right parts, pieces, and systems. So getting really, really, really intentional with getting really high level skill set at doing a listing appointment, getting people to say yes. That's huge, okay? A lot of people work on everything but themselves, and I'm going to say work on yourself first, get yourself to the highest level, and then, okay, so I didn't even intend to go here, but I'm going here anyway because I end up going here, which is why I ended up writing the stupid book, right? A lot of people focus on leadership and leadership skills. I focus on becoming followable. So leadership and leadership skills are like, I'm working on the things that externally I'm
telling other people to do, or I'm directing other people, or whatever.
I'm going to get other people to do stuff. Like first thing first is I want to work on myself and get myself to the point where people go, I want to follow that. I want to follow that guy. I want to follow that girl. So becoming followable, be followable. That's one. Like forget leadership.
Yeah.
Build the skills in yourself that people want to follow, and then you're going to have people that want to follow you. Because see, a lot of the times we get in these leadership positions and we collect a bunch of people, and those people look at everything they're building is for me and my empire.
What cracks me up is the brand new agent that says, I'm going to build a team.
No.
Okay, what have you done? Why would anybody want to follow you? Why would anybody want to be on your team? Like, give me a reason. And it starts with leading by example. Okay, so as we're talking about this, okay, so you said something. I'm gonna challenge you on something.
Go ahead.
You said that going on listing appointments was the highest paid activity in your business, right?
Well, getting listings, not necessarily going on.
Okay, let's just say getting listings.
Getting
same thing. Okay. All right. I would challenge you, and it's surprising because you're one of the best at what I actually think is the actual highest return on time in your business, which is getting recruits. Now, I do believe that getting listings is number two, and I think that honestly, when I'm coaching somebody as a team leader today, and they want to make a ton of money in the least amount of time possible, the two activities that I'm telling them they cannot delegate entirely. I mean, they're still going to have other people helping with them, right? You want to scale those parts of your business as well. But if there's two things that I think are mission critical for you to be involved in as a team leader, it's go out and getting recruits and getting listings. And would you agree with that?
So you notice I started with building the right team.
Yes.
Okay. So that's first, because that's always my first thing. It's like, you got to have the right team. If you don't have the right team, everything stops, right? You're just banging your head on a wall. So it's like, here's the deal. People say, well, Russ, I got the right team. I'm like, yeah, cool. So the problem is you've got 5 people on your team and they're all rowing the opposite way of you. So like, we got to get them on the boat facing that way, all of us, right? And by the way, that person on the boat that's really important isn't the people rowing the boat. It's the person calling the cadence. So in that regard, I would say you're 100% correct that getting the right people. Michael, what's the hardest job in the whole real estate business?
It's ISA, making calls.
That's recruiting.
Okay. Oh, you're talking about recruiting. Okay. All right.
Recruiting.
I'd say it's a hard one, but I think ISA is the highest turnover position in the industry.
Yeah, but you still have to recruit the right people.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So that's a recruiting problem too.
Yep.
Well, my team's not doing anything. That's a recruiting problem too. We're not making enough time. That's a recruiting problem too.
Sales is always the highest paid in any profession. And it's because you're reaching out, making that phone call, picking up that 1,000-pound phone to have the conversation. That's the hard task in real estate. Nobody wants to do.
You know what? And I can tell you why.
I'm curious. Why?
We're setting people up to do something that sucks, right? And we're setting people up to do something that sucks because the way they do it makes it suck. Okay. And not a single one of these people have ever said, you know what, Michael, I want to be a telemarketer. None of them, right? Like if you go to MCI back in the day in the 90s, I worked in MCI. You're going to love this. I worked at MCI Telecommunications in Springfield, Missouri. They had a call center, like 300 knuckleheads in there. And we were literally dialing for dollars to get somebody to use MCI long distance. And it was call after call after call. We do 300 calls in 4 hours and boom, 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 boom. Auto dialers back in the 1990 auto dialer, right? Old tech.
I remember that. Back when it was hardware on your computer.
Yeah. So for those of you that are a little bit younger than me, back in the day, you had to dial 0, right? When you're dialing the phone, and you had to have a long distance package. Because if you were going to dial outside of your local town, you had to have a long distance package to be able to make those calls, or you just get axe murdered with an astronomical, like 75 cents a minute to have a conversation. And we were doing plans where people could do like 15 cents, 18 cents a minute for long distance, which was amazing compared to 75. So like I'm good at it. Okay. I'm good at it, man. Like on my feet, go, let's roll. Been blessed, lucky that I have that skill set, played with it a bunch, developed it a bunch. So a little bit of luck and I'm good at it. Okay. But the average person's not good at it. They don't want to build it. They don't enjoy it. So when you get them in the real estate part and you're like, okay, dial for dollars. And they're like, no, not only no. So I think from an industry standpoint, here's my shift. Okay. And this shifts people from saying, I don't want to do that to I will do that. So you got to do something, right? You got to talk to somebody. So my shift always was, listen, we're going to deliver value. So Michael, I'm going to send you something. Boom. I send you something. And then I follow up. Hey, did you get the thing that I sent? I just heard John Cheplack say this last week. And he's like, did you get the thing about the thing that I sent? And I'm like, dude, that's exactly what we've been talking about doing, right? You send the thing and then you call them and say, did you get the thing on the thing that I sent? And people are like, but can you do that? So I've always been shoving this, and you'll see me shove this all the time, and I'm going to continue to shove it forever, is every single real estate agent in the world should be doing a real estate market update. I will probably say this, that the day I die, somebody's like, Russ, what's the most important thing for a real estate agent to do ever? Do a good real estate market update. Number one, most of the real estate agents don't actually know what's going on in the market. Number two, the only thing people ever ask me is, how's the market? So you think I should get good at answering that? And then number three, this gives me the ability to continually communicate because the market's constantly changing. So now I've got a reason to constantly keep them updated. Think of it like this, Michael. You've got a stock, okay? It's $650,000. I'll go cheap on you. $650,000 stock. It's one share. You think you'd check on it once in a while? How is a house any different, right? Obviously, it doesn't move up and down as much, and it's obviously not subject to as much volatility, but it's always moving around, should you know what that number is. So shouldn't we, as a real estate expert, be that resource for people? Because it's the only thing they want to know anyway. It's the only reason Zillow got huge is because people are like, oh, wonder what my house is worth. They didn't have to call me. They could go to somebody. They didn't get put in a headlock from a real estate agent. So right. Zillow explodes because people are like, well, I can find out the number and not have to talk to Michael, even better. Because if I talk to Michael, he's going to try to get me to sell the stupid thing and buy another one.
They don't realize that the real reason they go to Zillow is because they don't realize that the A in Zillow stands for accuracy.
And the I in Zillow for inaccuracy? Is that?
Yeah, exactly. So that being said, okay, so I want to shift gears for a minute. So first of all, totally on board with you there. Guys, essentially what we're saying is, look, if you're going to build a team, you got to be recruiting. You got to get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus, make sure the right people in the right seat on the bus. And when we talk recruiting, I think, when you were talking about, adding people to the team, I was assuming you were talking about administrative team members, but the truth be told, you need to have the right admin team members. You also need to have the right salespeople. Yeah, and I think it's a lot easier to build the right admin team than it is to build the right sales team. I think that's a big.
I agree 100%. So we have people that, I've said this is like, hey, do you want to add a really great buyer's agent to your group? Because you're going to be focused on listings and you want to push off some of that buyer activity to an agent. Do you want to add a great buyer's agent to your group? And they're like, yeah. I say, all right, cool. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start asking around saying, hey, I've got an abundance of buyer side stuff that I don't want to touch. I'm focusing on listings in my business. I need a couple of people to help me work the buyers that I have that are extra, right? And I'm looking for 3 people all at the same time. I've got 10 buyers. I got 11 buyers. I got 12 buyers. You get 3, you get 3, you get 3. So I got 9. You get 4, you get 4, you get 4 if I got 12, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them all up. It's like we're running side by side. It's like, hey, here's the deal. I want a running partner. Let's go run. Like one of the people is not going to show up, right? The other person's like, well, I got a hangnail. Okay, cool. Hop it off. Let's go. And you got one person that's going to constantly show up and they're going to be there every morning for that run. So people are like, well, Russ, how do you find a great buyer's agent? You don't find them one at a time. You find them 3 at a time.
That's right.
Because I know in 6 months, if I can have somebody doing something consistently over 6 months, it's like, hey, guys, I'm going to invest my time in the people that are actually doing the work. I'm going to reinforce and I'm going to invest my time in the people that are doing the work. If you don't do your part, that's on you. So listen, if you work with me and you're not successful, that's on you because I know what I'm doing. Right. I know I'm always going to be successful and we're always going to be clear on exactly what is expected of you. And I'm not going to ask you to make a bunch of random phone calls to a bunch of random nonsense. I'm going to say, we're going to send this to everybody you know and I know. And anybody that picks up the phone and calls us, we're going to talk to them, of course. And then once a quarter, we're going to do a follow-up call and say, hey, did you get the thing that I sent? Did you catch that part about the... That's it, right? Can you do that? Yes. And the people that are willing to do that, I'm going to keep spending time on, keep investing time on them. And
you're absolutely right about that. I think that's a real problem for a lot of team leaders is they think, oh, I'm just going to go out and hire 4 or 5 really great buyer agents and they're all going to do 7 to 10 transactions a month and blah, 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 blah. It's like, dude, you're in la la land. That's dreamland. That ain't going to happen. Like building a team is hard. You're going to have to work hard to find people that are going to produce at a high level. And you're not going to get there. You're not going to hire 4 and all 4 of them are going to be rock stars. You're going to hire 4 and you're going to think they're all going to be rock stars. And one of them is going to turn out to be a rock star and the other 3 are going to turn out to be and that doesn't make them bad people. That just means they're not going to they're not going to be producing the kind of numbers you think they're going to be producing. Right.
Michael, so here's the issue. And this is kind of funny because I'll tell people, ask yourself these questions first, right? Ask yourself these questions and make sure you're clear on what these questions are. And this is one of the main recipes that I've run with a bunch. And it took me a long time of banging my head against the wall to realize that this is the way I need to have the conversation. So when we get into doing conversation with any human, okay, so I'm going to build a team and I need a person, right? This is the person I'm looking for. A lot of people are like, well, Russ, this is what I want. I'm like, no, that person doesn't need you, right? We've had this conversation about ducks and eagles before, right? So what I want to do is I want to find a person that is somewhere now and they want to be more. And this is an interviewing conversation process. This is the joy and beauty of recruiting. The beauty of recruiting is like, what I'm looking for, Michael, is I'm looking for somebody that's at 2 or 3 sales right now that wants to be at 20. Who do you know? So every single person I do a transaction with, anybody that shows any of my houses, hey, just a quick question before we go. Thanks for showing the house. Just wanted to let you know we went under contract. And by the way, just in case if we list another house that's like this, I know you got a buyer looking for this. I'll let you know first. Is that cool? And they're like, dude, are you kidding? In a low supply market, you let me know what's coming on the market first in this neighborhood. Your buyer want to live in this neighborhood. If I get another listing, I'll let you know first. Cool? And they're like, yeah, dude, that's great. Hey, by the way, I'm looking for somebody that's like 2 or 3 sales a year that wants to be at 20. Do you know anybody that fits that? These are people we've already worked with. They've already done something. Right. They know I've got some lists. And somebody be like, hey, well, what about me? Okay, great. Well, would you be open to having this conversation? Yeah, cool, good. So let's schedule a time to do that. I'm not going to do it right now. I want to schedule a time to do it. Number 1, because I want to know if they can control their schedule. Number 2, I want to see if they can show up on time. And when we start this conversation, I'm going to start this conversation. It goes something like this. Let's tell me where you are now. Because the agent's going to sit down. What happens in this industry is we get in a conversation with an agent and the agent automatically puts us in a headlock and they're like jackhammering me in the face. They're like, well, I can go down the street and Michael Hellickson said he'd give me a 95% split and he's going to give me 15 leads a week. And I'm like, okay, cool, go. Then go to him. Knock yourself out. If that's important, you can go for it, right? So when somebody starts that stuff, I say, hey, hang on a second, before we even get into any of this, and this is for team leads and brokers also, by the way, and ask yourself, before we get into any of this, I want to make sure you and I are a good fit first. Because if we're a good fit, let's keep on talking. If we're not a good fit, then there's no point in talking about what we're going to do and what I'm going to do, because we want to talk about what I'm going to do and I want to talk about what you're going to do. So tell me where you are right now. What do you love to do? By the way, Chris Voss said this on stage. He was in Detroit. We had him as a guest speaker for one of our events in Detroit. And Chris Voss said, if you want to shift in a hostage negotiation, you got to ask them, it's like, tell me what you love about where you live, or tell me about something you love, or tell me what you love about your family. Tell me about your, if you can get them to talk about something they love, it changes the whole demeanor of a human. It changes the whole interaction with a human. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've been doing this in my process forever. Because I will ask them, one of the first things early up, what do you love to do in this business? What do you not love to do in this business? Because if they say, I just love working with buyers and lurking sellers and showing houses, and if they say, and I say, what do you don't love in this business? Wow, I hate doing the follow. I don't like doing the follow-up, and I don't like doing the paper. But get them to tell you who they are up front before I tell them what I'm looking for. So here's the deal. You go on a date. You and I go on a date. It's like, Michael, tell me what you're looking for in a guy. And you're like, well, Russ,
I'm not looking for a guy. I'm looking for a girl. What are you talking about?
All right. Good to hear, right? That tells me a lot, right? I mean, today, okay, so let's pretend, okay? So tell me what you're looking for in a guy. And you're like, well, I want blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, well, tell me about yourself, Russ. And I miraculously, I
like to check all those boxes.
I like long walks on the beach, and I love dogs too, all of a sudden, right? So if you tell them what you're looking for, then ask them what they want. They're going to tell you, they're just going to parrot it back to you.
That's
so before I tell you what we're really doing, before I tell you what we're really looking for, why don't you tell me where you are? And by the way, tell me what you want your life to look like. Where do you want to be? So this is the beauty here. It's like, I want to take you from where you are to where you want to be. Okay? Where are you now? Where do you want to be? So when I get them to tell me where they want to be, this is going to tell me whether they want to be a good teammate or not. Because they're like, well, what I want to do is over the next 2 or 3 years, I want to get up to $300,000 and $400,000 a year, and then I want to build my own team. Is that guy going to be a good long term team person? No, right? So I want to open my own brokerage. In 5 years, I want to open my own brokerage. Is that going to be a good person for your team long term?
No.
Well, maybe or maybe not. So
if you're in a downline model, it's possible, but yeah.
And this is where the beauty of building a team in a model like what we have and some of the others that have come out. And that's the beauty and brilliance of it. Now, like if you want to do that, cool. So for the first 2 or 3 years, what I'm going to do is help you get to here. And then I'm going to help you do what I'm doing. Now you've got a next level, next generation. So now I don't have to just bring people in. And most of the time we're bringing people in and like, here's my nest. And I'm like, my job is to keep those little baby birds in that nest at all costs, as long as possible, right? My job now as a team lead is like, I want the best quality people. I want people that want to be here, right? I don't want people that want to be here. And like, I mean, I'm okay with you get a bunch of baby birds want to sit in the bottom of the nest screaming for worms. I'm fine with that. God bless them. If they want to stay there, good. These are your consistent people. They'll be there for the next 20 years. It's perfect. They feel like they need to be part of something. That's good. That's great. Know who you are. But there's going to be a bunch of the ones that are going to be the real rock stars. They can get up on here and they get some feathers built up and they're like, I know how to find my own work. Cool. Well, then let's do this. What I want to do is I want to help you build your nest. So now this is you in charge of your own nest and let's help you build a nest.
Right.
The cascading effect. Now you've got a solution for them. So you got to know where they are and where they want to be. And then you have to be regularly checking in with them. Are we heading in this direction? Because what happens is during this process, you've got they're here and then they're here, right? And then they're here, and then they're back here, right? So we make these couple steps forward, and then they take a couple steps back and a couple steps forward. The ultimate goal is, are they actually making progress in that direction? If they see themselves making progress in that direction, you remind them what they told you they wanted to be. Now you have a lot more control. Say, remember when you were here? Now you're here. And they're like, but I want to be here. I know, but you got to be here first, and then you got to be here, and then you got to be here and be here before you get there.
Right.
We don't do what do they? You ever watch Harry Potter? My brother made me read the books because he had his kids. He's like, okay, should I let my kids read this? Well, I got fascinated by it. So they had this disapparate. Basically, they disappear and pop up somewhere else. Like that doesn't work in real world. In Harry Potter, you can disappear from here and pop up over here. That's not the way success goes, though. Success is that back and forth. Success, this is what people want in success, and success is more like this, right?
Yeah, success is definitely messy. You're not wrong. Okay, so let's switch gears. Let's talk about, we told, in the description, we were talking about, how we're going to describe what is 2025 really going to look like? How do we get sellers to move? And how do we overcome the upset and indecision that we're seeing across the board, whether it be sellers, buyers, consumers of all kinds, or whether it be agents? And so let's start with, what do you think 2025 is going to look like?
2024 repeat.
Okay.
Okay. So will we see some difference? Yes. Can I see some additional movement in the market? Absolutely. So 2024, I haven't seen the official end number, but it was right around 4 million home sales. 2023 was 4.09 million homes sold. Last year was somewhere right around 4. Some people are saying 3.8, 3.9, somewhere right around 4 million homes sold in 2024. What I would expect in 2025, based on a bunch of information, is somewhere in that 4.1 to 4.2 million homes sold. I don't see the floodgates opening up and just cutting loose and just going free willy on this thing. And a couple of reasons for that. Number one, we've got baby boomers are living longer than ever, and they're living healthier, and they're staying in their houses longer. Mm-hmm. The people that are getting in the older generations used to be, they got to the older generations, they're like, you know what, the kids are out of the house, I'm going to downsize. So what's happened with those people? They're like, okay, so I've got my $450,000 house now, that's 3,500 square foot. We're talking Michigan. And if I downsize to a 1,500 square foot house, it's 500,000. It's like, why am I going to go to a smaller house that costs me the same or more? And if I'm going to finance it, which for some people, financing still makes sense when they're older, they're going to sit back and go, like, why would I pay that higher interest rate and the cost in net dollars it costs me to run this business, which is my household, it's the same. So, like, why downsize? So they're going to stay put, right? And that's what we're seeing a lot of. So in addition to that, then you've got the next tier of generation. Michael, do you know what the average age of the first-time home buyer is now?
Tell me.
38.
Yeah, it's high.
38.
Yeah.
Which that's a
and
big...
isn't it, don't women buy, isn't it 60, aren't 60% of the first-time home buyers women now?
Single ladies are the highest level of first-time home buyers right now. So single women are buying houses, first-time home buyers, way more than males by a mile. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So then the second-time home buyers, the second home purchase, resale people, the average age is 61.
Wow.
61. So a lot of people are saying, well, Michael, I don't understand why I'm having trouble getting customers and getting clients. And they're like, well, dude, I'm all over freaking TikTok, man. Like, your average 61-year-old is not on TikTok.
That's true.
So when you're looking at resale, it's like people say to me, first thing you're going to do in any business, like to figure out where your target is, right? Mm-hmm. So people would say, now I'm a fire, aim, fire, aim a couple more, fire, ready?
Yep.
Yeah, I was like, so pow, what are we shooting at, right? The first thing first is, what's my target? So if my target's 38-year-old, and a lot of them single females, and 61-year-old for resale, that's a very different demographic than what the average person's aiming at right now. Right. Because they're trying to stay hip and they're trying to stay on the cutting edge. Right. And you got to keep in mind, your average 61-year-old, I'm 53, turned 53 on Friday, and I'm 53, and I'm still a relationship person. I'm still going to do business with somebody I know, like, and trust. And by the way, 63% of home sellers said that they used somebody they knew, liked, and trusted, or somebody else knew them. So it's from your sphere and referral. So we've got to do the things that keep that relationship built. Your average 61-year-old isn't going to go on TikTok and find a home seller or a person to sell their house, right?
Nobody's going to be going on TikTok soon.
It's entirely possible. Nobody. It's like, so that's a factor also. So a couple of the things that we have in the industry is most real estate agents don't know what normal is. Okay. So normal is 5.3 million home sales in a year is normal.
Right.
That's a normal year. You go back to 2021. Do you know what the number was for 2021?
Don't.
7.1 million homes sold.
It was big. Yeah.
A huge year, right? So 5.3 is normal. So let's go back 2 years ago, 2023, 4.9, 23. And then we've got 2024, and then we'll have 2025. So what happens when there's only 4 million sales? What happens when there's only 4 million sales? What happens when the year before that there was only 5 million sales? Mm-hmm. That means you've got 1.3, 1.3, 1.0. You've got 3.6 million people that are sitting on the sidelines that would normally be doing stuff. So now we've got pent up demand again. And that's just.
But you don't think that hits in 25?
I don't, well, to do what?
Mm-hmm.
You still have to get sellers to sell a house. If a seller's not willing to sell their house, a buyer's not going to find it. So the only option is then new home construction. New home construction this year should be between single family residence and multifamily, so forth, about 1.6 million new builds this year, I believe is projected. The problem is last year we had 2.1 million new households created. So by the way, this is just normal flow. 2.1 million new households created, 1.6 new places to live created, which means we are what? 500,000 homes short this year. So this comes right back around to a bunch of different sources, including realtor.com would say we are somewhere in the 4.5 to 5 million homes short currently. So what happens when you have a home shortage?
Prices go up.
Prices can. Well, I'm waiting for prices to drop.
It's not going to happen.
Drop with this.
And the interest rates aren't going to drop either with the jobs report that just came out.
They're not going to, right? Yeah. So we as an industry, number one, we have a problem because we don't know what's really going on. Right. So we have to know what's going on. Hey, by the way, does it sound like I know what I'm talking about?
And it's because you're studying your numbers.
I don't know doodly crap about doodly. I'm just telling you what the numbers are, right?
That's right.
Tell you what the numbers are, then I tell you what it means. So what this means is we're going to continue to have more pent up demand. Can we shake a couple more loose? Yeah, because there's people going like, all right, I've been waiting 3, 4, 5 years to do it. The heck with it. Now it's time to go. So will we see a little bit more of that? Absolutely. But for a lot of the reasons why people move, they're not moving right now.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Talk about agent attrition. What's that done in the last 3 years?
Yeah, agent attrition is a byproduct of a bunch of things, right? So when the market gets harder and there's way less sales, the average person is selling way less homes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you think about from a brokerage standpoint, we're counting on 5.3 million sales in a year. By the way, 5.3 million sales doesn't mean 5.3 million checks to realtors. It means more like 7.5 million checks to realtors. Mm-hmm. So what happens is you go from 7.5 million checks to realtors down to 4, let's say 6. You got 1.5 million less checks out there, which means everybody took a $10,000 haircut, right? No, because the people that are engaged in telling the story, they're actually you've heard the story of the richer and the poor get poorer?
Yep.
The people with skill sets are taking more market because keep in mind, 63% of people said they used somebody they knew, liked, and trusted.
And that's where I was going with this is, that's why I'm asking about the agent attrition, because, the reality is that we've got fewer agents in the marketplace today than we had in 2021.
Absolutely.
And so the question is, how many fewer? Do you know that data by chance?
I don't. That's the one fun part that I love, and I'm not going to be cruel about this, but I'm just going to say, if there's any one thing the association that we fund should do is actually be transparent.
Yeah, right.
Novel, right?
Yeah.
We're paying them to not be transparent. I mean, it's just information. It's just facts. But everybody in the industry needs to know what those numbers are so we can actually make adjustments as business people.
Yeah.
Like, how many cans of Coke is Coke going to make in the next year? You know what? They know exactly how many.
That's right.
What is the demand going to be? They don't know that, but they know they know what they can make, and they know how many factories they have and how many trucks they have. We don't even know that information. So I think.
So let me ask you this then. Let me ask you what you probably will know. So what do you think agent attrition has done for EXP? Like what have you guys seen in attrition? What has and what do you think, if you had to just put a guess on it? And I'm saying this because you have as good or better data than anybody else out there on the real estate side. And so what do you think has happened? How many do you think we're substantially down agents? Do you think we're barely down agents? Do we think we have the same or more agents than we had in 21, 22, 23? Like coming into 25 is I'm really anxious to know or interested to know, I should say, are we coming in with fewer agents than we had in 24 and 23?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Love to see that quantified. I can tell you from our company's perspective, it's kind of funny because we get, a lot of things I can say and can't say being publicly traded, particularly now that the year ended and I happen to see a couple of numbers through there. So I have to be very cautious in how I address this. But I would say if you summed up what EXP did in the last year, we lost a bunch of people. Everybody's like, EXP's losing people left and right. We're losing the right people. We're losing the right people. And by the way, compared to industry, we're not losing more than industry.
That's right.
By the way, when we look at the end of the day, for me, per person productivity is everything. EXP per person productivity is up.
Yeah.
Now, can I get specific on what that is? No. So you got less people doing more.
No, but that's exactly where I'm going with this. Yeah. That's literally my point. For the agents that are productive, I think, and that's so as we talk about what's 2025 going to look like, I don't care that the number of transactions isn't going to explode. What I truly believe is that because you've got a lot of, frankly, weak agents that have gotten out of the business, you've got a lot of, I think, very kind of what I like to call underemployed real estate agents out there, which means they've gone out and they've gotten jobs, driving Uber or driving pizza or whatever, right? Like they're doing other stuff to supplement their income, or they're even taking on a full-time job and just kind of hanging out their license part-time, if at all. And so I think there's a lot of underemployment in this industry that is leading to the higher producing agents gaining more market share and having greater success in 2025. And by the way, we're still seeing a 5%. I mean, 0.2%, that's a 5% jump in productivity. So I think that it's going to be a great year for agents that have the right systems, tools, technology in place, and most importantly, the right habits in place. I think 2025 stands to be a very good year for them.
I agree 100% that 2025 is going to be a ton better year for the people that are actually putting their head down. So one stat that I do know, I believe Leo Perez actually said this in public, so I'll say it in public. 73% of the people that we lost were zero or one sale.
Yeah.
Like, what did we really lose? Like, no judgment. It's just like the people that are leaving are the people that are not making. And it makes sense that they should leave.
Of course.
Like nobody got it. Listen, when we saw those little chicks, nobody in that first position, where are you at now? Nobody has ever said to me, Russ, I want to make 20 grand a year.
Right.
So that means everybody that's making under 100, because they all say they want to make 100. Everybody that's making under 100 is now disenfranchised, frustrated, disillusioned. They got into the business. They spent the time, energy, effort, and money to get licensed as a real estate agent to live that dream. That dream's not coming true. And now they probably have pressure on them from the people around them saying, well, that was going to be 100 grand. Listen, Michael, 100 grand a year is a game changer. That's generational wealth changer for the average family if you add 100 grand a year to a family, right? And that's not happening. So they feel good about it? No. And at some point, they got to realize they're not doing their part. They're not going to do their part, or they don't have the people around them to help them do their part. And they got to go get a job. And it's the right thing to do. There's no shame in going out and paying the bills. No shame at all. So the one thing that we know for a fact is you've got to be aligned with people that can help show you how to go from point A to point B. If you're not aligned with people that do that, whether it's a brokerage or coaching companies, you've got to have somebody who can show you how to get there. If your company's not doing it, get a good coaching company that can show you how to go from point A to point B. Because if you don't have a plan for that and know what your steps are today, what am I doing this week to make some of those be mine? If you don't have that plan, you're already dead in the water. Go get a job.
It's interesting you mentioned the point A to point D, because, I had a coaching call recently with a client, and, this person's making, 7 figures a year, doing very well. And they're wondering, well, Michael, why don't I just don't feel like I have the kind of money I should have at the end of the year. I said, well, let's go through your P&L. And so as we go through the P&L, and there's 2 P&Ls, everybody wants to talk about their business P&L. Nobody wants to talk about their personal P&L, right? Yeah. It's like, no, look, man, like, you've got to look at both. In their personal P&L, this particular person found over $200,000 they could shave out of their personal P&L every year, right? And we haven't even gotten deep into the business P&L yet. What happens when we get into the business P&L? We find another $200,000 per year. Guess what? That's $400,000 you could be buying real estate with. You take that $400,000, you put it into real estate. You do that for a couple of years. You're done, man. Like, you don't have to work. But this is a big part of the problem in this industry. I keep saying that, agents in this industry need to become their own best client. And there's this waterfall of money that's happening, and you're standing right next to this waterfall of money, AKA investing in real estate. And most agents aren't even getting wet. It's like
there's a river running past you and you're standing on the shore.
Yeah, dive in, man. Like, get in.
Yeah. So you're going into something that this is my newest one here. So 3 steps, right? Evaluate. Where am I at now? What am I doing? Right? Eliminate. People are like, what can I add to my business? No. What can you eliminate out of your business? There's so many things and garbage and junk and noise. If you eliminate stuff out of your business, then that gives you time to execute the new plan. So evaluate, eliminate the things that are not making you dollars, not serving you well, whether it's the things you're doing for your health, whether it's the things you're drinking, whether it's things you're putting in your pie hole, whatever that is, lack of exercise, lack of nutrition, all of those things. Eliminate the stuff that's holding you back, and then you can execute. Right, the first thing I'm going to do if I'm going to race a car, I'm going to take all the weight out of it and put as much horsepower in it as I can. That's the first. It's like, get all the junk out. Let's go racing. That's when you start to execute. So if you start to put that in your business, what new thing am I going to do this year? Everybody got a New Year's resolution. What new thing can you eliminate this year? So meeting with a company and they're like, what can we kick out? Well, nobody does that.
But that's the problem, is that what happens is they start just adding, they just layer this, that, the other on top of it. It's like, it's kind of like, there's even apps out there right now that will help you identify and eliminate recurring expenses in your life, right?
Yeah.
And what's that?
You heard the story about the little girl at Christmas, and she asked her mom. Mom's cooking dinner for Christmas, and mom takes the ham out and she puts the ham on the counter. She cuts the end off one side, cuts the end off the other side, puts it in the pan, puts a tinfoil over, and throws it in the oven. And the little girl's like, "Why do you cut the ends off the ham?" And mom's like, "I don't know. That's what Grandma always did. Let me ask Grandma." Calls Grandma and says, "Hey, Grandma, I just cut the ends off the ham, and Susie just asked me why I cut the ends off the ham." And she's like, "Why do we do that?" And she's like, "I don't know. That's what my mom always did. So let's call Great Grandma." They get Great Grandma on the phone. They're like, "Hey, I'm coming over for dinner. We'll be there in a couple hours." And she's like, "Hey, real quick, Susie just asked why we cut the ends off the ham. I just cut the ends off the ham, threw it in the oven, just like you guys showed me." And Great Grandma's like, "I cut the ends off the ham because my pan wasn't big enough."
That's right.
And you're like, why are we doing why? Here, look, evaluate. Why am I doing this?
Yeah. And because we've always done it this way is not an acceptable answer. It's just not. Yeah. And that's something that we've got to change. And that's where, when we start evaluating your business, and as a coaching company, that's exactly what we do. First thing we do, we don't go in and make a bunch of changes. First thing we do is we got to analyze, where are we now? And why are we here? It's not just about where are we, it's also about why are we where we're at, right? What is the reason for this activity? What is the reason for this expense? Why are we using these lead sources? Why do we have this person working for our company, et cetera? Go ahead.
The same recipe.
Yeah.
The same recipe when I'm recruiting is the same recipe when I'm hiring. It's the same recipe when you're dating, right? Where you at now? Where do you want to be? So as a good coach, it's like, where are you at now? Where do you want to be? How do you get there? Okay. First,
and the roadmap is pretty straightforward once you know where you want to go and where you're at today.
Super easy, right? Yeah. And all I'm going to do is help you. Do you feel like you're more likely or less likely to be over here by hanging out with me? And they're like, more likely? Cool. You want to follow me? Let's go.
Russ, I want to be respectful of your time, and we're over a few minutes here, but I want to ask you these last two questions, and I want to make sure that we get a chance to share this with our listeners. What do we do with sellers who are not willing to get off the dime right now? We got sellers we need to get moved. How do we get that to happen?
Well, so here's the problem. The problem is the sellers have a misunderstanding of what's actually going on in the market because they don't understand, right? So number one, educating them as to what's actually going on and why it's going on. So if they don't understand the playing field, they're not going to want to play on it. If you don't understand blackjack, guess what? You're not going to start throwing down $1,000 per hand. I hate the stupid game. I don't understand it. I watch it and I'm like, I get it, but I'm not confident enough to throw my money out there or to go have a Coca-Cola. At least I get something, right? So these guys don't know the playing field. They don't understand the game. So if you don't help them understand what's actually going on and why it's going on, and their biggest fear is, I'm going to sell my house, I'm going to be stuck without a house, right? So we've got to change the narrative. So let's say that people are saying, well, are you ready to sell your house? No, right? So we got to tell the story a little bit. So here's a little slightly different flavor, right? If I could show you how to get in a house that's a better fit for you and set you up where you have less dollars out of pocket every month, would you be open to that conversation?
Sure.
Right. So have you thought about maybe in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, have you thought about moving, but you decided not to because you felt like you're kind of stuck and you felt like if I make this move, I'm going to be paying way more dollars for the same house, or I'm going to have way less house for the same dollars. Have you felt like that in the last couple of years? Yeah. Mm-hmm. If I could show you a way to make a move and not have it cost you more dollars, would that make sense? Yeah. So cool. Great. So let's talk about all your money, right? Because people are stuck. Michael, is the only investment you have a house?
No,
I only expense you have a house, right? So
okay, yeah, there you go. Okay.
A house, that's one expense, right? Here's your credit cards, that's another expense. Here's your car. Look, it's a new Tesla. It's obviously a new Tesla, right? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, that's exactly.
Close enough. So you've got house, you've got credit cards, you've got this. Oh yeah, and by the way, you took your kid to school, right? So you got your school, okay? You got your school loans and so forth. So you've got all these other expenses. They're like, but this one, okay? So here's the thing: almost every seller in the world right now has equity. Like 68+% of people either own their house free and clear or have 50% plus equity. I mean, 68% of the people you're talking to have a ton of options. And if they bought the house more than 2 or 3 years ago, chances are they have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in equity in their house, right? So here's the deal. if you've got 20K in credit card bills and you've got $75,000 in car loans and you've got $45,000 left on your student loans, here's the deal. You got somebody with $200,000 equity. If we could pay this, and this off and put you in a 7% interest rate, you're actually net dollars ahead at the end of the year.
Right.
So how many dollars does it cost for you to run your business like this? Let's just say this is $7,000 for a year. So you run this all together and put it all under a mortgage, and it's $6,500 a month out of your pocket. Are we good? Like if you get the house you want, move to where you want to be, and it actually costs you less dollars per month because you've got all this other stuff paid off, why not, right? And then, by the way, when the interest rate drops back down, you can refinance it. If it drops down 1%, that's going to save you $300 a month, right? Plus or minus, depending on what your house price is. So start doing the math. So this actually gives you more freedom. Right now, you're in jail. So if you could move, would you? If I could show you a way to move and it made sense. Now, listen, if we do the math and it's 6,500, isn't 65, it's 75. We sit down, Michael. So now you're in the place you want. All your other debts are covered and you're $7,500 a month. Would you be willing to pay $500 more a month to be in the house you want to be in versus being stuck where you are? Because listen, if your house isn't serving you, after a while, that's going to get old. Because we're seeing people, it's like grandma and grandpa is great. They're not living alone anymore. They got grandkids living there. They got grandkids staying there half the year. There's a bunch of those things going on. So if we can put you in a position where it makes sense, you see how it frames a different story than just, I'm a real estate guy, just do houses. I'm a real estate guy, and we look at the whole picture. And I always have them. You've got Madison knows how to do this, right? I told this story on stage for you. Yep. This is still the same stuff. This year, we've got people sitting on the sidelines. We got pent up demand to sell. We've got pent up demand to buy. And the problem is we're not showing them the how to do it. In this market, there's a way to do this. If you could do it, and I could show you how to do it in this market now and help you be even or ahead, you want to talk. And if you come out a little bit up, some people are like, dude, for 75, I'll do that in a heartbeat.
I think the problem is that agents they get so focused on this myopic way of looking at it. It's all about the house. It's all about the house. It's all about the house. But there's not just the house. You've got to look at their whole financial picture. And instead of, to quote, one of your agents, very, very good friend of mine, Jay Kinder, you got to start being a trusted advisor. It's not about being a real estate agent. And when you can become a trusted advisor, and you can say, hey, look, I'm going to look at everything you got, and we're going to figure out, does this make sense for you or not? And if it doesn't make sense for you, hey, that's cool. Like, when it does make sense for you, just give me a call, right? Like, I'm here for it. But if it does make sense for you today, let's get it done. Let's decide together, does this make sense for you or not? And if it does, let's take action now so that we can take advantage of that now. Here's the thing. There's two ways, you guys are going to get more business out of this right now. Number one is by what Russ just described, right? Bring everything into the whole picture, understand the whole picture, and be able to be a trusted advisor. The other thing is you got to go out there and you just got to find more people. The reality is there are fewer people today going after the same number of transactions that we've seen the last 2 years. So the question is, are you going to get that leftover and then some? You can get your unfair share. I look at Austin Hellickson, right? Look at, here he is, 22 years old, number one listing agent in the country. You know how many homes he listed last year? Do you know the number?
I don't. I know previous year was 75 plus, but he's way over that now, isn't he?
So his first year was 97. That was 3 years ago. The second year was 2023. That was 120. This last year he listed 150 homes in a market where the going got tougher, arguably, for a lot of people. But here's the thing. The thing is, he put more effort in and he just stayed focused. And I say put more effort in. I don't know that that's entirely. Let me rephrase that. He continued to put consistent effort in, and he got exponential results as a result, right? Every single person watching this can do this. And by the way, he's not the only one. I can't begin to tell you how many of my coaching clients told me that November and December 2024 were the best November and December they've ever had. Yeah. I mean, it was on fire.
The people that are active, engaged, and have solutions, right? If you're not solving the problem, you're part of the problem, right? So it's that matter of learning. And listen, people are like, well, but man, I don't have all that experience, Russ, and you've been through and blah, blah. It's like, hang around the people that are talking like this. If you're not hanging around people talking like this, you got the wrong crew. Find people that are talking like this and hang around with them. This is part of why being involved with coaching and being involved with the right brokerage makes a big difference. You can be in the wrong brokerage with the right coaching company, still be successful. You can be in the right brokerage and the wrong support and still be unsuccessful. So you've got to find your people, find your group, find your tribe, and then you've got to connect. They say that when people are searching for happiness and searching for happiness, searching for happiness, it's like the ability to feel connected to other people is a precursor to happiness. And by the way, people want to be wealthy, and they find that the people that are happy are much more likely to be wealthy because people want to be around people that are happy. So focus on happy. This is like, I know you don't love tattoos, but I got a tattoo down my freaking forearm because there's a reminder for me. This is backwards, my crappy handwriting backwards. Happy, healthy, wealthy, wise. And in that order, happy first, right? Because man, there's so many times when you're chasing the money. There's so many times when you're chasing all this other stuff. It's like, you got to be happy where you are. Find that happy place. And then people want to be around you, right? You want to be followable. Be happy. People want to follow people that are happy. You want to be happy as a team leader. People are going to want to be around you. They'll want to be on the team.
So, okay. So on that note, and first of all, yes, I want to throw this out there, and then I'm going to ask you one last question because again, I want to be respectful of your time, and we're way over here. So,
hang on a second. You do realize that when you booked me for an hour, I booked out an hour and a half, knowing full well that when you and I start going, I already knew where this was going, dude. I am completely.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
I'm calm as a cucumber because I knew exactly where this is going to go.
Dude, I'm glad to hear that. Well, okay, so then to your point, look, bottom line, guys, 2025. For those people to have the right systems, staff, and habits in place, guys, it stands to be your best year ever. No question. And habits is going to be the key there. All right. Now, that being said, Russ, upset and indecision. How do we overcome them? Whether it's in ourselves, in our consumers, how do we overcome upset and indecision?
You know what? It's kind of funny because most of the therapies that you bump into when you have real problems in your life, they're like, let's talk about it. And most of us guys are like, I don't want to talk about it, right? And the lady's like, we got to talk about it. The problem is every time you talk about something and you say something, you re-say something, it makes you feel that. And when you feel that, you get this little chemical burst in your head. Now, I know Renee Rodriguez can explain this and the science behind it. I'm going to go super simple the way I understand it. It's like you get this little chemistry experiment here. It goes right? And that chemistry experiment makes it feel as if you are there. So you have a traumatic experience and you close your eyes and you start to think about that. Shoot, look at the hair on my arms. It's already standing up, right? So you get this traumatic experience or good experience and you sit down and think about it. You close your eyes and think about that. Do you know when they took runners, they put all these electronic things all over the runner and they're like, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to think about running, right? You're going to get in your warm up. You're going to take your 3 breaths. You're going to get into the stance. You're going to get into the blocks. You're going to hear the sound, pow. When you hear the pow, boom, your legs are firing. Legs are pumping. Arms are pumping. Head up, chest up, shoulders back. Lean forward and you're leaning into the finish line. And what they found is that look at, I don't know if you see this, like, it looks like a caterpillar on my arm. Your body doesn't know you're not running. What you think in your head, Michael, is absolutely everything. So we've got these people that are in this position right now, and they're telling the story of the trauma over and over and over and over and over and over. And every time I see somebody post in one of the socials, you're not going to believe this, but my sister just bought a house with another agent, and I'm just skip it, right? I don't even want to put my time, energy, effort into it. If you are focused on wreckage, you're going to see wreckage everywhere you go. If you're focused on success, you're going to see success everywhere you go. Now, don't get me wrong. There are other things along the road as you're going by. But if you're focused on the good stuff, you're more likely to see the good stuff. So it's a way you program your brain on a daily basis. What are you specifically looking for? So here's a silly little process. Actually, I threw this in my book too, because it's just something I've done forever. And by the way, if I look around my corner, on my desk behind me, there's always a rubber band. Because there's times when I get in this cycle and it's kind of like, yeah, I screwed that up. And by the way, I screw stuff up all the time. So like there's conversations I'll get in with a brokerage of 100 people and it, for whatever reason, just doesn't click. It just feels gross, or we just kind of get crossed up and they don't want to be straight. They don't want to be honest. And I'm not taking anything but that because I'm not guiding you. If you're not honest with me, I'm not giving you any advice. So we can kind of get in this kind of, and there's things I can sit back and be like, I could have handled that differently. Or I mistook something, I could have handled that differently. So I kick myself over it. And there's times when I get in that loop, so I'll pull that rubber band on my wrist. And every time my brain starts to think about that, I give it a snap. It's barbaric, dude. Mm-hmm. Freaking straight up sledgehammer, barbaric, stupidest thing in the world. But that little snap of pain makes me reconnect. Now, you can't just do that, have a bad thought and snap it, because then you're just going to start scaring the crap. You can literally set yourself up where you start to think something and you go, I started it, snap, right? But then the second part is you got to replace it with something you want. right? Yes, that happened. I'm not saying ignore that it happened. I'm not saying don't apologize for stupid crap you've done. I'm not saying, hey guys, don't call those people and be like, Michael, listen, man, I could have handled that one different. That did not go as expected. Most of the time it goes pretty good, but every once in a while it just gets weird. You go into a listing appointment, just not a good fit, right? Why do we kick ourselves for the next 6 months over that one not a good fit when I had 10 other that month and I did great? But we humans, we kick ourselves over the failures. We don't celebrate the successes. So we've got to find some way to do it. So for some of you guys, grab a rubber band, stick it on your wrist. And anytime you have a thought that doesn't serve you in any manner, whether that's looking in the mirror and going, wow, that doesn't look like I want it to, or that doesn't fit like I want it to, or I blew that, or I didn't do all of it, right? There are times when we as family members aren't as kind to our family as we should be, just because we all have that. But you got to stop replaying those moments of failure over and over, because if you don't, you're just going to get more failure. And I'm not saying ignore it, but what I'm saying is rewrite it. You are the author. If you're going to let your mind wander, let it wander down beautiful paths.
I love the way you're making this point. I catch myself oftentimes. I used to do what you're talking about. I used to beat myself up over stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And what I found was, if I, instead of beating myself up, I just be like, oh, I can't believe I did that. Okay. How am I going to make sure that never happens again? What am I going to do to change that outcome in the future? Okay. If I do this, this, and this, that'll change the outcomes in the future. So I just need to remember, do this and this and this next time. And then you know what I do? I move on and I forget about it. And I literally put it out of my mind, and I stop worrying about the things that I've done in the past. And I think, honestly, if there's one thing that is very difficult for people today, it's self-forgiveness. I think we're much quicker to figure out other people than we are ourselves. And I'm not just talking about sin and those types of things. I'm talking about for just making a mistake. Now, remember, guys, if we're learning, there's no mistakes, right? We're either learning or we're growing, right? One of the two. And so, at the end of the day, we've got to be willing to forgive ourselves, but forgive does not mean that we entirely forget, or that we don't learn from that experience. But I think that, to your point, if you're so focused on, the mistakes that you've made, the challenges that you've had, if you're so focused on that, of course you're going to have indecision, because you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to make that same mistake again, so I'm just going to not make a decision, right?
Yes. Which is the worst
doesn't
one,
work.
right?
Yeah, that doesn't produce a great outcome, right?
Yeah, I think people are so afraid to make a mistake, and there's no such thing as a mistake. There's an unintended outcome.
There you go.
Because
I like
nobody's
that.
like, oh, I'm going to go in and screw this up. And you go in, you do the best you can, and you're like, wow, that didn't go like I wanted it to. Unintended outcome. Yeah. Your intent was to go in there and do a great job. Didn't end up working out that way. I remember a listing appointment I did, and I sat down and I'm like, man, that was like, I read those people completely wrong, went down completely wrong path, and it just shut everything off. And there was no bringing that one back from the dead. And that's, and you learn from stuff like that. I didn't go in there expecting to not get the listing. I went in there intending to get the listing. I'm like, I'm the guy, I got this, did 40 of them this week. Let's rock and roll, right? Sometimes you just don't get them. Nobody bats 1,000, right? What do they call somebody in the major leagues that strikes out 7 out of 10 times?
Well paid.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
If you're batting 300 something, a Hall of Famer. You're striking out 6 or 7 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah.
Where in the real estate industry, I think Wendy Forsythe. You've met her before.
Yeah.
She's chief marketing officer. I just love her to death. She said to me one day, she's like, Russ, in business, if you're at 80% of doing the stuff you love and only 20% of the stuff you don't love, or if you're 90 and 10, that's amazing. The problem is you get stuck on focusing on that 10. I want zero upset. I want zero failure. I want zero unintended consequence. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes you just blow it. The difference is you don't stop making mistakes. You just make mistakes with more zeros. The stuff that I screw up now, we could screw up stuff that's millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Right. I long for the days when you're like, wow, that was a bad day. We blew something up and it cost $1,000. We're just add a bunch of zeros to that now.
Right.
If we don't bring that brokerage, it's $1 million fail.
Yep.
Multi-million-dollar fail, and the potential, so it's focusing on that. So if you just, number one, be kind to yourself and realize, if I'm doing 80% good, I'm good. I'm not saying don't try to eliminate the 20, but don't be so focused on eliminating that 20% of bad that you lose the 80% that's good. Focus on the good.
Well, and that's where, you got to see the big picture, right? You've got to understand that, this is just one small component. This is 1 minute, 1 day, one experience out of a lifetime of experiences. And we have to understand that, look, if I'm getting it right most of the time, that's good. I'm moving forward. And so I think that helps not only with indecision, it helps us make decisions quicker. I think another thing that we need to do to help us with indecision was you have to make fewer decisions. In other words, I think decision fatigue is a real thing. Right.
Oh,
And if
absolutely.
we're asking ourselves to make too many decisions every single day, well, guess what? It becomes harder and harder and harder to make decisions because we feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of decisions we have to make. So we need to limit the number of decisions we have to make and then get in the habit of making them as quickly and as decisively as humanly possible.
Yeah, I think most people wake up in the day and they're like, what am I going to do today? It's like, no, like before I go to bed last night, my calendar's already locked and that's
Yep.
what I'm going to do. Like
That's
for
right.
me back in the day when I was training for triathlons, I didn't wake up and I'm like, should I run or shouldn't I run? My plan was I'm running X and I'm biking X and I had the system, I wrote it out. Here's what I want the result to look like. So here's the parts that go into making that result look good.
That's
So
right.
it's like, am I going to ride my bike this weekend? No. It's like, I'm riding my bike. It's just a matter of how far. And we already knew we're doing 50 miles on Saturday. We're doing 25 on Sunday because we just killed it on Saturday. So it was already decided. And the cool part is when, like you heard the old African proverb go something like this. If you want to run fast, go by yourself. If you want to run far, go in a group.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what's the group doing? Like I had a group of people that I knew would be there every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. at State Road 54 in Suncoast every Saturday morning. Big, and it was a group, right? And they all showed up. And listen, you didn't show up, your buddies called you. You're like, dude, where are you at? Right? So you've got to start setting those things up so you're running with people doing the same stuff. Listen, you can build your whole business playing pickleball.
Yeah.
Join a pickleball league. So instead of just like, I'll go play pickleball when I feel like it, join a pickleball league where people are expecting you, right? Join an organization where people are expecting you to show up and then actually show up and be 100% fully present. Put your phone on silent mode, put it on do not disturb, put it on airplane mode. I'm in pickleball mode for the next hour and a half. And that's how you're going to start connecting with people. That's how you're going to build and deepen relationships with people.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that because that level of focus is another component I believe that is missing in most real estate agents today. And don't get me wrong, look, I've got ADD just as bad, if not worse, than the next guy. But at the end of the day, one of the things that I learned how to do that caused me to be very successful was focus. And I'm speaking about everything in your business, but especially when you start looking at your prospecting time, right? I mean, how many people sit down with the right intention that, hey, I'm going to sit down and make some calls. And then they sit down and a call comes in, or they get an email from an upset seller, or they get, whatever happens, or they get on social media and all of a sudden they're squirreling down 1,000 paths on social media. And at the end of the day, they don't get done the thing that they set out to get done. Guys, if you are so focused on getting 2 appointments a day, 5 days a week, with people you have not yet met that are thinking about buying or selling a home now or in the future, if you just made that your singular focus, listen, this business is going to get very, very easy for you, and you're going to get very, very successful in a very, very short period of time.
So let me amend that maybe, and I'd potentially disagree. That's step 2. First step is reconnect to the people you already know, because we do a horrible job of that in our industry also. So connect to the people you already know. Then once you've connected to them, now let's start adding people in the stranger. And I will tell you, go join a pickleball league, because you're going to meet 2 people every half hour, and you're going to be playing against 2 new people. And next thing you know, they're going, "Hey, Russ, how's the market?" No, I go, "You're funny you ask. I got something. Want me to send it to you?" And they're like, "Yeah, cool." Next thing you know, I had 2 people 3 times every Wednesday. So there's 6 people a week. That's 6 times 4. Now it's 24 people in a month. Over the next year, it's 100, 175, 200 people. You add new people that all have something in common. Listen, all you pickleball people are weird. You're all weird the same way, right? And that's not a problem. You find your weird and then celebrate that, right? Like those people, that's like the CrossFit people back 15 years ago. Man, it was like you couldn't get into a single conversation with anybody who's doing CrossFit. They have to mention it at some point, right? Just the way it was. Pickleball is the same thing now. So find your tribe, find your thing. If that's your thing, connect with people, and that's where it's going to come from. And then don't add value, then call. Send them something, say, "Hey, did you get the thing?" Makes it 1,000 times easier.
Yeah, because now the call is only about just, "Hey, I just want to make sure I didn't drop the ball on mine. Did you actually get that thing I sent you, man?" I mean, that's absolutely. I mean, it's never about, "Hey, I want something from you." It's, "Hey, listen, I'm just trying to bring you value." Right?
Give first, then get.
Absolutely. Well, Brian Buffini used to talk about it back in the day. Give, ask, receive, right? And that's truly the formula. It really is. So,
absolutely.
Russ, I appreciate you taking the time with us today. Really quick, before we forget, you've got a book coming out here. Can we talk about that? Is that something we're allowed to talk about now?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's getting close. It's getting close.
I'm excited. Show us the book. Tell us about it. What are we going to learn when we get?
It's not out yet, but it's coming out soon. It's like it says not for resale, right? So did you see? Did you see my?
I did.
Look familiar?
Looks familiar. Yeah.
Dude, I use that so often. I'm like, that needs to be on the cover of the book. So this is Be Followable, right? It's Be Followable. There you go. Be followable. So we have a lot of people talking about leadership, and one of the things I say first is like, but I got to work on me first. Like leadership is what you do to work on everybody else a lot of times. And I'm like, first things first is I got like halfway through writing this, and I'm like, this is about how I became me to make, and then once I become the best me, then people want to follow me. So this was a challenge. My boss, Amy Weaver, she says, "Hey Russ, you need to write a book," and I'm like, "No, I don't." And she's, "Yes, you do." And I'm like, she's like, "You got a bunch of weird stuff. You got a bunch of unique stuff, and you need to get that in a format." So I started writing this. I was going to write a book on recruiting, and it turned out it's like, let's become the best person first, and then I'm going to recruit to that. Because if I'm not the right person and I recruit to that, then I'm recruiting a lot of the wrong stuff, and then I'm going to hate the people I've got. But become the right person first, and then go from there. But yeah, I mean, look at this; it's starting to become real.
I love it.
This will be out
awesome.
February.
So you're saying that should be out in February?
Yeah, it looks like that's the not for resale, because I'm actually literally going through and editing and kind of shuffling things around, because you're like, well, that made sense when I wrote it, and now you put it in this format and kind of moving things around and dotting the I's and crossing the T's and the commas and all that stuff I don't love. So I worked with somebody. So when this comes out, I'll let you guys know I worked with somebody. This is not a Chat GPT book. It didn't go into chat. I sat with a guy like you, and we would every Friday talk for an hour and a half. And he's like, talk to me about this. And literally just transcribed all of my stuff. I sent him a bunch of my videos and plugged all that stuff in. So my wife's like, holy crap, this sounds like you. I'm like, it is me. It's just like, he just typed it all out for me, because that's not my wheelhouse. So for a small fee, this thing end to end, and it's literally all my material. He'd send me the chapter back, and I'd sit on a Thursday night and I'd be like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And I'd take some of the verbiage and I'd mess it back up. And he's like, no, that's not the way to say it. And I'm like, that's the way I say it, right? So we got, funny things like, you'll get a kick out of this. Like my first chapter is stop trying to juggle other people's balls. Like, come on,
that
Russ.
definitely sounds like Russ.
Yeah, but it's the reality is, like, you got so many things on your plate right now that you're trying to juggle, and that's not and here's the visual that goes with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I got to juggle the things I got to juggle. Is when other people are chucking stuff on your plate, it just slows you down and messes you up. And like, you're now no longer on your path; you're on somebody else's path. The chapter 3 is kick their donkey. It's about learning. It's like, sometimes you got to kick somebody in the butt. Sometimes you got to give them a hug. Sometimes you got to give them a hug and kick them in the butt at the same time. If you kick somebody that needs a hug, you got a problem. If you hug somebody that needs a kick, you got a problem. So it's about like figure out which way you need it and surround yourself with it. So there's a bunch of chapters on this. This is just normal. This is human. This is like the human way.
I can't wait to read it. I told you earlier, I'm expecting a signed copy, man. I want to see that. I can't wait.
Absolutely.
Dude, I'm excited. Russ, thank you so much. Now, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you? What would be your preferred method of contact?
Yeah, so they can hit me on my personal email. My personal email is lagganinc@gmail.com. That's the one that I don't have all the filters on. So that's just like, you only get that if you know me. So lagganinc@gmail.com. I have people asking me to speak and so forth, and that's something I also do quite a bit of. I love to be on stage, so I've appreciated the opportunities. Like, you're asking me to do something I love, I'm going to say yes every time, right? So so that's part of the game. And then of course, I am on Facebook, Russ Laggan on Facebook, and you'll see, I'm not just business guy on Facebook, I'm business guy, and I'm also woodworking nerd, and tearing my thumb off on occasion on video nerd. I'm just living a human life, and it's not all roses, but so I'm living a good life, and by the way, doing real estate to fund it.
I was glad to see that your thumb is actually working. That's good news. So.
Dude, it was, I took this thumb on tour, and it looks pretty good now. You can't really see it that well, but it's starting to get some movement in it. And man, I did 2 weeks in India with an open wound. Man, it was a challenge. It was a real.
That sounds horrible.
But it's healed up pretty good, and I didn't do any permanent damage. But my mother-in-law better like the table I was working on. Let's put it that way.
Right on. All right, well, guys, reach out to Russ. Grab a copy of his new book, Be Followable. What a great title. What a great concept.
Coming out in February.
I'm really looking forward to it. Russ, thank you again. And guys, if you haven't done so already, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe, and hit that share button, man. Tickle that share button a little bit. Share it out there. Share this with other folks, and we'll see you on the next Club Wealth TV. Thanks a lot, Russ.
See you, brother.
Club Wealth is the only coaching company on the planet that will literally guarantee that you will double your income or make at least an extra $100,000 your first year coaching with us, or we will give you 100% of your investment back. Click the link below, sign up for the appropriate tier level, and let's get you a strategy session today. And I promise you, I 100% guarantee you, promise you that you will walk away with a heart full of gratitude for the time that we took for you, because you got so much value out of that call. Schedule your strategy session today. I promise you'll be glad you did.